So you guys remember 1 year ago, when I did the best team for Kanto, and I brought up the fact that I wasn't going to use red and blue because the mechanics were wacky. Well, it's been over a year, and I changed my mind to satisfy all of you Gen 1ers out there. And here today, we have MandJTVPokevids to help me help you guys get the best possible OG red and blue Kanto experience.
Greetings, Pokefans! Michael here, and as a fellow Pokemon YouTuber, I'm here to help out Mystic with figuring out the best possible team you could use in a playthrough of the original Pokemon games Red and Blue. Or Red and Green if you're Japanese, but that seems unlikely. Then once you finish with this video, be sure to check out the video we made on my channel where we count down Ash's top 5 strongest unevolved Pokemon.
Like always, we will be making a team of 6 Pokemon that we feel is best to help out the player on their journey in that respected Pokemon game region. In this case, it would be Kanto. The team will consist of Pokemon to take on the respected Gym Leaders, Elite Four, Team Rocket, and Blue. Since there are no move tutors and breeding, there's no point in giving me an explanation on that because they didn't exist in Generation 1. One aspect that we will be including though are trade evolution Pokemon, as it is now possible through Virtual Console on the 3DS, making it much easier to trade with people, or if you have a ROM, you can enable impossible trade evos to make it easier. It's an easy process, just look it up on YouTube. We will also not be using version exclusive Pokemon, as we are trying to make a team that you can use in both games. And we will not be using any of the legendary birds neither, because some people like to use legendary Pokemon on their team, but some people don't. But with that being said, you guys know what to expect when we build this team. So let's get into the building itself.
So of course the first decision is which starter to pick, and we've decided that Squirtle makes the most sense for the original games. It helps tremendously with Brock right away, but it also takes care of a lot of trainers and Pokemon throughout the entire playthrough, namely Blaine, Giovanni, and several of your rivals' Pokemon. In addition to that, it gets the reliable, strong stab move Surf as soon as you get the HM, a benefit that the other 2 starters don't get.
Now I'm sure you guys are wondering why it's not Bulbasaur again. Well, grass types don't do well in Generation 1. They only have a few uses, mainly against Brock, a little bit of Giovanni, and Misty, and there aren't very many grass type moves in Generation 1 to begin with. Sure, there's Petal Dance, but only the Gloom line gets that. Bulbasaur is literally stuck with Razor Leaf, as it's the strongest move throughout the entire playthrough, and Solar Beam is a 2-turn attack. Blastoise compared to Charizard, well, that's pretty easy to talk about. Blastoise has an overall better matchup with every important battle in the region than Charizard does, as well as fire types really just not being all that useful. Sure, it does well against grass types, ice types, and bug types. All the ice types are mainly water and ice as well, and Charizard isn't obtained till late game anyways. And it can't even get any flying type moves to begin with, so its dual typing is a complete waste. Blastoise just does the job in this generation better than these. Charizard has a useless flying typing, and Venusaur only gets Razor Leaf, so I think Blastoise wins this one, you guys.
The best moveset for Blastoise by the end of the game would be Surf, of course, Ice Beam for Lance's Dragons and extra coverage against grass types and flying types like your rival's Pidgeot, Submission for extra coverage against normal types, and Earthquake to deal with surprise electric types and just more coverage in general. The Surf HM is of course found in the Safari Zone, and then both the Ice Beam and Submission TMs are in Celadon City, and lastly the Earthquake TM is found in Silphco.
Since the starter is done, you guys know the drill. It's time for the actual team. We all know Squirtle is weak to Blue's Bulbasaur, and a Pokemon we found that does well early on and does pretty well in terms of mid-game and late game is Spearow, and then later evolving into Fearow. You can get Fearow very early game towards the left of Viridian City on Route 22. Now I know in my Fire Red and Leaf Green best team, I chose Dodrio, and that is still a solid Pokemon to pick if you want to switch out Fearow later on. But Spearow can be found early game and can benefit longer, and you would have to do less trading by the time you capture Doduo towards the 4th or 5th gym. Dodrio only has a few stat differences compared to Fearow, but Fearow is just better in terms of game availability, and it still gets Drill Peck, the most powerful attack that Dodrio can get. Pidgeot is just nowhere nearly as good as Fearow and Dodrio in Generation 1. For starters, Gus is normal type, and it doesn't get a flying type move until level 31 being Wing Attack. Drill Peck is way better than that. Even with Pidgeot having Fly, it doesn't compare to Fearow and Dodrio's attack stat. So Fearow for early game to mid game, or the switch to Dodrio for late game is completely up to you. Both are great Pokemon. It just boils down to personal preference, or if you want to train either of them up.
When you reach the end of the game, Fearow's best moveset would first include Drill Peck, the best flying move in the game that deals with your rival's Venusaur, Bruno's fighting types, and any bug types you happen to encounter. The next move would be Swift, since it's a solid stab move that never misses, which can be really nice against double teamers. After that, I'd give it Double Team, since that can come in handy to dodge hits, and Double Edge for an even stronger stab move, unfortunately with the drawback of recoil. The Swift TM is found on Route 12, the Double Team TM is found in the Celadon Department Store or the Safari Zone, and Double Edge is in the Rocket Hideout.
So now let's make our way over to Mount Moon and find our third Pokemon, Geodude. Geodude is a solid wall-based Pokemon, being both a rock and ground type. We could have chosen Dugtrio, but we need more walls than speed. Trust me, you guys will see later. And the rock typing can come in more handy as well as being stab. Ground typing just does numbers to a lot of the Pokemon in Team Rocket, being poison types, Lieutenant Surge's Pokemon, Koga's Gym, Blaine's Gym, Agatha's team, Blue's Growlithe and Arcanine, and can resist all of those hyper-fanging Rattatas and Raticates throughout the games. Though I will admit the Geodude is slow, but having a wall is not a bad idea. Just watch out for those water and grass type Pokemon because it is quad effective to either of those typings.
Golem's moveset should first include Earthquake, the famous and 100 base power stab move. This will help a ton with electric and rock types all throughout the game, such as Lieutenant Surge or some of the rock types in the Pokemon League. Dig is just as strong as Earthquake in Gen 1, and you should definitely teach it Dig as soon as you get the TM in Cerulean City, since that's how you'll beat Surge. However, Dig leaves you vulnerable to opponents' Earthquakes, so it's best to replace it with Earthquake once it reaches level 36. Rock Slide is the next move to use, since it's another stab move that deals well with bug and flying types, especially your rival's Pidgeot, which can't even scratch Golem. Submission would be another good move, since it helps with normal types, and lastly, we recommend giving it Explosion. Ideally, you don't have to use it, but it could be useful in a severe emergency. The Dig TM is given to you in Cerulean City, Rock Slide is found on the Celadon Department Store roof, and Submission is purchased in that same store.
Hang on, don't leave Mount Moon yet, because we have one more Pokemon we are going to be picking up there, being Clefairy, and then shortly after evolving it into Clefable. Technically, you could get Clefairy before Geodude, because of them both being in Mount Moon, but Clefairy's encounter rate is way lower than Geodude's. But hey, if it does happen, don't worry about it, it's not a big deal. Reason being why we chose Clefairy is because of how early you can evolve it into Clefable, and the great variety of moves it can learn. As far as trainers go, it does well against practically everyone depending on the moveset you want to run on it. There are so many options for Clefable being a normal type, so it practically does well against everything. Just be careful of fast fighting types. With the special defense stat and special attack stat being merged in Generation 1 as well, this really benefits Clefable in terms of taking hits and dishing them out. Being a fully evolved Pokemon though in the early game is very good and can take out most Pokemon with ease. Mid to late game though, it's still pretty useful.
The first move Clefable should have is Body Slam, since it's a great stab move with a nice chance to paralyze, something that can really cripple Sabrina and your rival's super speedy Alakazams. Fire Blast is the next move to give it, since that's your only way to have a good type advantage over Lorelei's Jinx, and it could also come in handy against your rival's Venusaur. The last two moves are trickier to choose, since Clefable has a lot of options for coverage, so you could take your pick between Psychic, Blizzard, Thunder, or even Metronome just for giggles.
So remember earlier when I said we will be including Trade Evolution Pokemon? Well, we are on this team, so say hello to best team for Johto veteran Alakazam. Honestly, how could we not put Alakazam on this best team? It destroys everything, especially once again with emerging in both special stats, and on top of that, it's ridiculously fast. You can find this Abra above Cerulean City on Route 24. The only problem with Abra is how hard it is to capture, because you only have one chance to catch it, as it teleports away after the first turn. If you're successful in capturing it though, you are in for a very powerful Pokemon. One more downside is you can only start officially using it when he gets Confusion at level 16 and it evolves into Kadabra. You can capture it around levels 9 through 10, and you're going to have to switch train it for a bit, but if you can get past that, Alakazam and Kadabra are both incredible Pokemon.
Alakazam's moveset should of course include Psychic. That one's a no-brainer. Psychic type cuts through Erika's, Koga's, Bruno's, and Agatha's teams, plus taking care of your rival's poison type Venusaur. Team Rocket has a lot of poison types too, so that's even more of a benefit. After that, it doesn't matter as much since Alakazam will likely just crush everything with Psychic anyways, so support moves tend to make the most sense. Seismic Toss is good to get a set amount of damage if Psychic doesn't work for whatever reason, Recover is nice to save yourself potions, and Thunder Wave is great to spread all over your opponent's teams as well. The Seismic Toss TM can be found on Route 25, and the Thunder Wave TM can be found on Route 24.
It's time for our 6th member, so please welcome best team for Kanto superstar veteran, Jolteon. Yeah, It's back, and it's just as good here as it is in Generation 3. This time, critical hits are based off of speed, as well. Jolteon has killer speed and can zap down huge threats wherever they stand. Jolteon really doesn't have much of a move pool here, but to be honest, when is it ever? Its Generation 7 one isn't even all that great. But we needed an electric type, and Jolteon, in our opinion, is the best electric type in Generation 1. Unless you want to count Zapdos, but we are not going to be including the legendary birds. Jolteon is just way too fast. Crit rates are great, and you can teach it Thunderbolt right when you get it, so it's pretty freaking powerful.
You'll mainly be using Jolteon for its electrical power against Lorelei's water types and your rivals Pidgeot and Gyarados, so be sure to use the Thunderbolt TM on it as soon as you evolve it. After that, the moveset doesn't really matter as much, but some good support moves would be Thunder Wave, Substitute, and Double Team. You can maybe give it Thunder instead of one of the other moves if you feel like you might need the extra power, but it's probably not all that necessary. The lower accuracy really sucks, and Thunderbolt is usually good enough. Thunderbolt you get for defeating Lieutenant Surge, Double Team is in the department store, and Substitute is in the game corner.
Well, that concludes this powerful team of 6 for your OG Red and Blue adventure. Each one of these Pokemon has a job to do, and we can guarantee that these Pokemon will do their jobs well and efficiently. God, this kind of sounds like a Billy Mays commercial. I know that you guys probably won't agree with some of these, of course, and that's fine. Comment ones you guys would put on the best team. We're not done yet neither. Michael and I did a video over on his channel where we discussed the top 5 strongest unevolved Pokemon owned by Ash Ketchum. So you guys can go check that out right when this video is over, and that would be now. So, that being said, I will see you guys next time with some more awesome Pokemon content. Leave a like, subscribe, and with that being said, guys, see you later.